The movie starts with a man named John who returns home from work and greets his wife Karen, who is cooking in the kitchen. Karen, on the other hand, seems upset with him and hardly speaks to him when he attempts to strike up a conversation. They watch a movie later that night and John tries to chat with his wife again. He exits the living room when he receives the same reaction, but Karen stops him, claiming she has something to tell him. She pauses, but eventually says something irrelevant. The next morning, John gets ready for work and goes to the restroom. While looking in the mirror, he feels a strong impact that causes a hole in their bathroom ceiling. When John looks through the hole, he notices a few fighter jets flying by. He intends to leave their apartment right away to see what is going on. Karen, on the other hand, approaches him and seeks to express something crucial to him once more. Outside, John is surprised to witness an airplane crash into a nearby building. The man next to him remarks that the scene resembles the 9/11 disaster, which John is unaware of. Suddenly, a terrifying thing occurs on the streets, and he rushes back to his apartment. Karen is then informed by John that the people downstairs are biting. They glance down from their window, perplexed, and see two people eating a man alive. Nothing could have prepared them for this nightmare, but they must now concentrate on surviving until aid arrives. So Karen and John go over their food and supplies and realize they have just enough for a few days. As a result, they decide to raid their neighbors' homes. After agreeing that Karen would do it the following time, John goes out first. Soon after, John arrives with some food and informs Karen that their next-door neighbors, the Andersons, have left their door unlocked. This piques Karen's attention, so she prepares to rob the Andersons' home. As she returns with a few bottles of wine, she tells John that he should be ready to steal their neighbor's television. They watch the news on their newly stolen television later that night. According to sources, they should avoid contact with the infected and mark their window with an X so that rescuers can find them. The next morning, John awakens to be met by Karen, who has just returned from looting. His wife seemed to have gone over and beyond in terms of acquiring supplies, because she even stole a dress. Later, when John wonders what they should do if the infected individuals try to break into their building, Karen simply reminds him that they must defend themselves. In this regard, they both rehearse responding to hypothetical attacks. By preparing some tools and weapons, Karen detects a disturbance outside their door later that night and instantly calls John to come over. They hastily open it, thinking it's the rescue squad, but they are greeted by an infected person, who instantly tries to bite them. Fortunately, they manage to repel it unharmed. Stressed by what has just occurred, John says he needs to smoke as soon as possible. Hearing this, Karen grabs a few cigarettes from their cupboard, and John inquires as to what else she has in there. Karen, much to his surprise, pulls out some illicit stimulants and snorts them all up. Despite his reservations, John is eventually persuaded to give it a try. Karen afterwards proudly displays her weapon and her other collection of stimulants. Karen awakens the next morning to the sound of a gunshot. She gets up and goes to the kitchen only to discover John playing with her gun and even shooting a pot that Karen's mother gave her. Furious, she snatches the gun from him and walks to the bathroom to shower. Later that day, they set the broken pot pieces in the entryway to indicate that they are inside the house and resume their routine of working out and preparing weapons. They do, however, take pauses from their workouts to snort some stimulants. During the day, they are doing their usual routine. They hear a commotion at the door and see someone attempting to open the handle from the outside. Concerned that it could be another diseased person, John gets a knife, while Karen grabs the hammer. When they open the door, they discover that it's their neighbors, Emily and Leo, who are seeking to stay in their home. Karen refuses to let them in, but John insists, thus the couple is welcomed into their house. As soon as they settle into the living room, Leo recounts that he and Emily were trapped in the laundry room straight after the disaster, and when they came out, there were already infected people in the building. They did, however, locate the broken pot on Karen and John's doorway and immediately understood the message. The nearby couple's bellies growl in the middle of their conversation, so they politely request for some food to eat. Karen agrees, but as soon as she and John enter the kitchen, she insists that Leo and Emily leave. Returning to the living room, Emily criticizes Karen and claims that she went insane after her miscarriage. There is clearly an underlying tension between the two women. The next door couple finishes their meal and Emily discovers a dress on a nearby chair. She claims to have the same one at home and Leo confirms that they both have the same television too. Karen and John exchange uneasy glances when they hear this. Later, they all have a decent drink and quickly agree to get some rest. Emily then inquires about where they should remain, and Karen responds that they can sleep on the floor and may bring a couple cushions with them. Emily, who is secretly offended, sleeps on the floor with Leo anyway. Karen performs a prank on her next-door neighbor in the middle of the night. She moans loudly and pretends to be having fun with John. Emily, feeling threatened, climbs on top of Leo and makes loud moaning noises as well. Karen, on the other hand, does not back down and orders John to slap her from behind, and when he does, it is so loud that Emily is forced to give up and accept defeat. The four of them eat breakfast the next morning, and Karen instructs the other couple to organize and tidy up. Emily is triggered, so she informs her husband that they must kill the threats. Karen and John later fall asleep on the couch, and the other couple intends to stab them with a knife. Their preparations are thwarted when Karen awakens and offers to bake them cookies. The other couple has no idea that Karen is aware of their murder plot, so she includes a secret element in the cookies: illegal stimulants. She places 2 tablespoons of it in, and it kills Leo and Emily. Karen and John, guilty of what they'd done, snort some stimulants to relieve the stress. They discover Leo alive and well after hearing a strange sound emanating from the living room. However, he appears to be an infected individual. So, Karen shoots him dead with a pistol. Emily jumps up from the couch and is shot as well. Later that night, John and Karen drag the dead bodies from their house and snort some Valium before going to bed. They are, however, too asleep to notice that the rescue team has asked everyone to switch on their lights. As a result, they both miss their chance to be saved. The next day, they spend a pleasant moment in the shower, during which Karen expresses her desire to adopt a kid if they survive. John agrees, and they both express how much they adore each other. Later that night, John takes Karen on a small inside date in which they pretend to be strangers attempting to get to know one another. Things become more intimate as the night progresses, and they start having fun. They are disturbed, though, when they hear a knock on the door. Karen rushes to open the door, and John tries to stop her, but it's too late. 3 men barge into their home demanding precious goods, but they have nothing of worth, so the leader orders his men to beat up John while he assaults Karen. Karen is initially helpless, then she pours flour in the man's face and stabs him in the neck with a knife. When the other 2 men enter the room and see the horrific scene, John shoots both of them. John and Karen immediately drag the bodies out of their house. Later that night, they hear helicopters, but the rescue crew fails to notice them. For this reason, they both decide to rush past the mob of diseased individuals and leave the next day. The next morning, they carry out their plan, but they have to return home because they underestimated the number of afflicted persons downstairs. To make matters worse, Karen was bitten in the leg, and it's only a matter of time until the infection spreads. Yet, John is confident that a pharmaceutical corporation is waiting to profit from their vaccines. This reassures his wife, and they retire to bed soon after. Karen has a nightmare in the middle of her sleep, so she decides to take off before the virus consumes her. But John notices her nearing the entrance and swiftly stops her. He later gives some of his blood to his wife in the hopes that it will keep her alive till aid arrives. Karen initially denies her hunger, but John argues that it is his choice, so she simply complies. Karen and John wait at the window, and the next day, realizing they may be the last ones remaining in the city, given that it will be her last day, John tells Karen all of his future plans, as well as how everything will play out in his head. John believes that the rescue crew will arrive the next day and Karen will receive the vaccine, which has a side effect that will allow her to bear a child. John isn't hesitant about expressing to his wife that he wants to grow old with her, and Karen expresses this desire to him as well. They both burst into tears, but Karen informs John that she needs to take a bath and departs. She's about to commit suicide in the bathroom when John appears unexpectedly and offers her a goblet of his blood. Karen spends a passionate night with her husband, knowing that it won't be long until she becomes fully infected, and they get intimate for the last time. The next morning, John wakes up alone in his bed and goes to the restroom where he discovers a message from Karen. She tells John in the note how much she loves him and how great their lives have been. However, the hunger took control in her worst nightmares, and she could no longer fight it. As a result, she begs John to end her pain and informs him that she may be found in the nursery. With a broken heart, John goes to the nursery, where he discovers Karen chained up. Unfortunately, she is now completely infected, and there is no way to save her. John then takes the revolver and points it at his wife's head. Karen looks at him with dead eyes before he pulls the gun, and he apologizes for what he's about to do. Someone bursts down the door, and it's the rescue team. They scour the area for survivors and eventually come across the nursery. They are horrified to discover Karen and John, who are both infected and chained to the wall. The rescuers are perplexed as to why their hands are bound together, and the commander just states, astounded, that it's love. The rescuers decide to shoot both of them down moments later. The end proves that John could not kill his love and joined her suffering. Please make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.